Trump and Biden as the same, different issues. But do you really believe that when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent.
True. That's true. That is true. They're weaponizing government to go after their political opponent. And CNN is not happy with RFK Jr. putting that on their platform, putting that in the airwaves, putting that in front of their viewers. They're not happy about that. Hi, it's Leon, just a plain old mob character, just another cog in the machine. CNN is not happy with that answer. They're not happy with RFK speaking truth. Joe Biden is using the DOJ to go after his political opponent. Well, they'll say, well, no, they're not, because Donald Trump is corrupt. He has done illegal things. Which, who did he hurt? Who did he hurt? Who did Donald Trump hurt? What crimes did he commit? What crimes did Donald Trump commit? Just because he has 91 indictments doesn't mean he committed those crimes.
Actually see Trump and Biden as the same, different issues. But do you really believe that when people talk about the threat to democracy that Trump poses, do you really think that that is an equal evil to Biden?
I mean, listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. For 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest threat to democracy is not somebody who questions election returns, but a president of the United States who used the power of his office to force the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to open a portal and give access to that portal to the FBI, to the CIA, to the IRS, to CISA, to NIH, to censor his political critics. President Biden.
Man, that's true, man. Donald Trump didn't do that, and they call him a dictator, a authoritarian. They call it the Trump regime. They call it a regime when he was in office. He didn't do any of that. He didn't do anything to his political opponents. Donald Trump doesn't like Democrat politicians. He doesn't like them. He doesn't do anything to Democrat voters. He doesn't see Democrat voters as vermin. He doesn't see them as political enemy. He doesn't try to divide people with that. Democrats do that. Democrats divide. And Democrats are authoritarian. And Democrats use the power of government to go after their political opponents. That's what Democrats do. Democrats are the dictators. They're the threat to democracy. The democracy that they so worship about, they're the threat to it. They're the threat to the rule of law. And if they wanted to, they would have gotten rid of the Constitution a long time ago. The Constitution is a threat to them. The Constitution is a threat to the rule. It's like RFK said, nobody else used the power of government until Joe Biden did. He used the full power, the full authority of the government. Not authority, but the power. He used these agencies that he named, the three-letter agencies that he named, FBI, CIA, NRA, NSA, whatever. All the three-letter agencies that he named. Biden abused to go after his political opponents, to try to go after people, to censor people that were, I'm doing air quotes, misinformation, which in their terms, misinformation means something that the government doesn't want you to hear, or something that the government disagree with, that doesn't align with their propaganda. That's what misinformation and disinformation means to Democrats. Democrat misinformation. That's what it means. That's what they mean about misinformation and disinformation. Something that doesn't go along the Democrat rule and agenda.
For the first president in history to use his power over the Secret Service to deny Secret Service protection to one of his political opponents for political reasons. He's weaponizing the federal agencies. Those are really critical threats to
Donald
democracy.
Trump, of course, tried to overturn a free and fair election. He tried to overturn one, right? He's still fighting in court.
Yes.
How is that not a threat to democracy?
Well, I think that is a threat to democracy. If
You can't question elections. Democrats questioned every election that they lose. Every election that they lose. And Donald Trump's not allowed to do the same, to question the elections, to ask people that work the elections to actually look into it, ask the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, to look into it, not to find votes, but to look into it just to see if there's no shenanigans going on in there. You can't question the elections. You can't question them. It's okay for Democrats to question elections when Republicans win, but it's not okay for Republicans to question elections. That's double standard. That's double speak. That's a double standard right there. And we shouldn't live in a double standard world. We shouldn't live in a two-tier justice system where one side gets prosecuted for questioning an election and then the other one doesn't get prosecuted. Even though none of them should get prosecuted. You have questions. If you want to question an election, you can question the election. It's your free speech to do so. It's your free speech to do so. That's not a threat to democracy to question the election, to ask secretaries of state to look into something. It's up to the Secretary of State if they actually want to look into it, but you can ask, like, hey, can't you look into this? Can't you find these? Can't you look for these? Nothing wrong with asking. Imagine how many times can I ask you to do this? Can I ask you to do that? Nothing wrong. The person can deny it. The person can deny that request.
Him trying to overthrow the election clearly is a threat to democracy. But the question was, who is a worse threat to democracy? And what I would say is, I'm not going to answer that question, but I can argue that President Biden is, because the First Amendment, Aaron, is the most important. But Adams and Hamilton and Madison said, we put the guarantee of freedom of expression in the First Amendment because all of our other constitutional rights depend on it. If you have a government that can silence its opponent, it has license for any atrocity.
So just to be clear, you're saying you could make an argument that President Biden is a worse threat to democracy than Donald Trump. That's what you just said.
But who else has ever tried to send, what president in history has ever tried to censor political opponents? What president has weaponized the federal agency? When my father came into the Justice Department, the first week he was there, he got all of the branch and division attorneys together, and he said, whatever we do, we are not going to use the power of the Justice Department for political reasons.
Trump, of course, has said that he would do that. He has said that he would do that.
Of course, and that is...
Where did he said that, dude? Where's the quote that Donald Trump said that? All he said was, well, I'll be dictator for one day, but that's for the border. That's for the border. Dictator, one day. And they said, well, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. Well, he wants to be a dictator for one day. One day. Your president is already a dictator. Your president is already an authoritarian. And you're questioning Donald Trump and what he says. Well, I'm going to use the... Well, dude, you're going after him. You're going after him. So he's going to go after the people that he needs to go after. And that is the bad guys in the government. He needs to clean out house. He needs to clean house. Donald Trump needs to clean house. Donald Trump needs to clean house. That's what Donald Trump needs to do, clean house. And questioning elections is not overthrowing them. He didn't overthrow anything. If he actually tried to overthrow, they would have got him for that, but he didn't try to overthrow. All he asked was, like, let me go challenge these elections in these states. Let me go to these states. And the reason why he didn't win those is because all the judges don't want to put their noses into it, and they use the excuse of lack of standing. Like, it's lack of standing. Like, there's a word there that's not supposed to be there, so it's lack of standing. It doesn't have no standing, lack of standing. That's why those court cases didn't win, because they had a lack of standing. But no, they don't tell you that. Well, they had so many losses in the courts. Yeah, the courts didn't want to take part of it. If they don't want to put their nose into this. No. It should be questions, because you're not supposed to circumvent the legislators in those states. The legislators make up the rules and the regulations for elections. It's not the executive branches, not the executive branch. The secretaries of states are not the legislators. It's up to the legislators to go after those secretaries of states, though, because they're not. They're supposed to say, "Hey, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that." But that's it for this video. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any thoughts, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you on the next video. I will see you on the next one. Peace out.